Okay, ready for today's deep dive.
Let's do it.
We're heading to Gurgaon,
Always a hot spot. What are we looking at?
the Dwarka Expressway.
Ah, right. Big changes happening over there.
Yeah, and it's more than just another road project, right? The research we've got here says this thing's going to be a big deal, like a century from now.
A century, huh? Well, they're not wrong. This expressway is like the keystone.
Yeah.
Pull it out and everything shifts.
A keystone.
Yeah, it's a metaphor. It's a thing that holds everything else up, that makes it all work.
Okay, I get you. So it's a game changer. But hold up a sec. Not everyone listening might be up on their Gurgaon geography. What exactly is the Dwarka Expressway? Give us the basics.
Right, of course. So picture this. A 29-kilometer stretch, brand new, smooth sailing, connecting Delhi straight to Gurgaon.
Okay, so less of a traffic headache for commuters. That's always good.
Exactly, but it's bigger than that.
Yeah.
This is about opening up a whole new part of Gurgaon for development. Think new businesses, housing, the works. It's all up for grabs.
And this isn't some far-off plan either, right? This thing's already open for business.
Oh yeah, no dusty blueprints here. The Prime Minister himself inaugurated it back in March.
So they're putting their money where their mouth is, showing how important this all is. Makes sense. Less traffic, more opportunity.
Speaking of opportunity, we got to talk about this global city thing. 1,100 acres, that's practically its own zip code.
It's massive, that's for sure. And they're not skimping on the ambition either. We're talking skyscrapers. Those 80-floor buildings would be the tallest in all of Gurgaon.
Okay, now that's just showing off, 80 floors. And get this, they're even putting in a lake. A whole artificial lake, right in the middle of it all.
A lake? Seriously?
Yeah, talk about making a statement.
Okay, I'm sold on the lake. But I gotta ask, this all sounds amazing if you're a big-time developer or a CEO, but what about the rest of us? What if I'm not looking to buy a penthouse suite?
That's the cool part. This isn't just about attracting the big fish. It's about creating a whole ecosystem.
An ecosystem.
Yeah, so think about it. You've got your luxury apartments, sure,
Yeah.
but also more affordable options, places for businesses to set up shop. Even those things called builder floors are part of the mix.
So something for everyone, at least in theory.
Exactly. Different strokes for different folks, right? You've got your high rollers, your young professionals, families looking for a bit more space. It's all there.
This is why I love these deep dives. You peel back the layers and it's like, whoa, there's a whole lot more going on than you'd think.
It's not just a road. It's an entirely new chapter for Gurgaon. And who knows what this chapter holds.
That's what we're here to find out. But let's start breaking it down a bit. We've got all these different types of properties, different price points. It's a lot to take in.
Right. It can feel overwhelming, even for someone who follows this stuff closely.
So let's do this strategically. Where do we even begin?
How about we start with the luxury market? If you're looking to be close to Delhi, sectors 111 and 113 are where it's at. Big players like Period Constructions and Whiteland are building there.
Okay, so prime location, top of the line, everything, but it's going to cost you.
Oh yeah, we're talking somewhere between 18,000 to 25,000 per square foot.
All right, so for those of us with slightly shallower pockets, what are the options?
Well, that's where those mid-range options come in. Sectors 83 to 85 are a bit easier on the wallet, usually running around 16,500 to 20,000 per square foot.
Still a chunk of change, but more manageable for sure. Any developers in that mid-range segment we should keep an eye on?
Ganga Realty is doing some interesting work.
Okay, good to know. But let's be real. Not everyone can drop even 16,000 per square foot on a place. What about those who thought buying in Gurgaon was just a pipe dream?
That's where those affordable housing schemes come in. This is something the government's really pushing, trying to make homeownership a reality for more people.
So we're talking like actually affordable, not just Gurgaon affordable.
We're talking apartments priced between 20, 30 lakhs. Almost unheard of in those areas before.
Wow, that's a game changer. What kind of apartments are we talking about at those prices?
Think 2 BHK and 3 BHK units. Perfect for families who thought they'd never be able to swing it. And to sweeten the deal, they're offering up to 90% financing.
Wow. Okay, that's huge. They're really making it easier. But let's switch gears for a sec. We touched on these builder floors earlier. I've heard that term thrown around, but what exactly are they?
So picture a smaller building, like 4 floors max. Each floor is its own individual apartment, and you're usually buying it straight from the builder while it's still being constructed.
So it's like cutting out the middleman, getting in on the ground floor, literally.
Exactly. And here's where it gets interesting. They used to be limited to 3 floors, but there's been a policy change. Now they can go up to 4.
4 floors. What's the big deal about an extra floor?
It all comes down to supply and demand. More floors, more apartments on the same plot of land. That makes the land itself more valuable. Plots that were going for 1.5 lakhs per square yard, now they're fetching 2 lakhs, sometimes more.
So it's a potential gold rush for people who own that land.
Yeah.
But it's not a free-for-all, right?
Right. The article mentioned there's some rules in place, especially under that Deen Dayal Yojana scheme. They've got regulations about plot sizes and all that.
Makes sense. Got to keep things from getting too chaotic, right? But speaking of chaos, with all this opportunity floating around, there's got to be a flip side.
There's always a flip side.
So what are we talking about? What should our listeners be wary of?
Well, first off, remember, this whole area is a work in progress.
The Dwarka Expressway is open, but,
and it's a big but, a lot of the surrounding areas are still under construction.
so that shiny new apartment might come with a side of construction noise for a while.
And possibly some delays. Projects don't always go according to plan, you know.
So what's the takeaway for our savvy investor?
Don't just take their word for it. Do your research. Check out the developer's track record. See if they actually deliver what they promise.
Because a fancy brochure doesn't always match reality. What else should we be looking out for?
Infrastructure, or the lack thereof.
Ah, right. The expressway might be done, but what about everything else?
Exactly. Internal roads, water supply, sewage systems, those things take time. Make sure they're keeping up with the pace of development.
It's like they always say, location, 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 AD, make sure your toilet flushes.
Exactly. Don't just get dazzled by the property itself. Look around, see what's nearby. Schools, hospitals, grocery stores, you want all that within reach, right?
Do all about the bigger picture. What else?
Let's talk about those prices again.
Still pricey, even with the affordable options.
It's more about something called speculative pricing.
Meaning?
Meaning, whenever there's something new and exciting, like this whole Dwarka Expressway situation, there's a risk of prices getting inflated just because of the hype.
Ah, so you're saying don't believe the hype.
To a certain extent, yeah. Do your own research, look at comparable properties in other areas, and see if those prices seem realistic.
Don't get caught up in the frenzy.
Exactly. Sometimes the best deals come to those who wait for the dust to settle a bit.
Words to live by. Okay, so we've got construction delays, infrastructure woes, and the potential for inflated prices. Anything else?
One more thing. Don't forget about what happens after you get those keys.
You mean like actually living there?
More like, how well is a property maintained? Because a shiny new building can get run down pretty quickly if nobody's taking care of it.
Yeah, because who wants to live in a place where the elevator's always broken?
Exactly. Check out the developer's reputation for property management. Do they have a good track record? How do they handle complaints? These things matter in the long run.
So it's all about doing your homework.
Knowledge is power, my friend. Especially with an investment as big as real estate.
Truer words have never been spoken. And luckily for us, you've got all that knowledge right there in your research. Let's dig into some of those expert opinions, shall we?
Let's do it.
All right, so we're back, still swimming in the deep end of this Dwarka Expressway situation.
And man, there's a lot to unpack.
Tell me about it. We've covered a ton of ground, those luxury pads, the more affordable stuff, those builder floors.
It's wild how much one road is changing things, you know? This isn't just about getting from point A to point B faster.
It's like this whole chain reaction, right? The Dwarka Expressway is just the start.
Exactly. This thing is shifting the entire landscape of Gurgaon. What used to be the boonies is now prime real estate.
And everyone's trying to get in on the action, but our listeners probably wondering, okay, so how do I make sense of this? Should I be calling my realtor right now?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Uh-huh.
And unfortunately, there's no easy answer.
No crystal ball predictions we can give them.
I wish I had one. No, but seriously, every investor, every buyer, they've all got their own situation, their own goals.
So it's less about should I invest and more about what kind of investment makes sense for me.
Exactly. And that's where research comes in. Figuring out how much risk you're comfortable with, what your priorities are.
All right, so let's play a little game. Say I'm feeling bold, ready to ride this real estate wave all the way to the top. What should I be looking at?
If you're chasing those big returns, it's all about location, location, location. Being close to the action, Delhi, the airport, the major business hubs, that's where you're going to see the most appreciation.
So the closer to the heart of things, the better.
Pretty much.
Okay.
And don't underestimate the developer either. Go with someone who's got a proven track record. Quality builds, finishing on time, and taking care of their properties.
Because a fancy lobby doesn't mean much if the building's falling apart.
Exactly. Don't be afraid to do your homework. Ask around, read reviews, see what people are saying.
Now, let's switch gears a bit. What about our listener who's a little more cautious? not looking to get rich quick, just wants something stable, reliable.
That's totally valid. Not everyone's cut out for the high-stakes game.
Mm-hmm.
In that case, you might be more comfortable in a more established area, something that's already got its infrastructure in place, its amenities, all that.
So less about potential, more about peace of mind.
Exactly. You might not see those huge jumps in value, but you're also less likely to get any nasty surprises.
It's all about finding that balance. But hey, we can't forget about affordability either.
Absolutely. Not everyone's got a bottomless bank account,
Right.
and that's where those government affordable housing schemes come in.
They're really pushing those, aren't they? But how can our listener be sure those are legit? There are always those shady deals out there.
Stick with projects directly backed by the government, or go with a developer you know and trust. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Always good advice. But let's zoom out a little bit. We've talked location, developers, prices, but there's more to it than that, right?
You're talking about the bigger picture, the community, the lifestyle.
Exactly. Owning a property isn't just about having a roof over your head. It's about the life you live there.
And that's where those integrated townships and self-contained communities come in. They're trying to build places where you can live, work, shop, all without ever getting in your car.
Sounds too good to be true. But hey, if they can pull it off.
Right. It's a nice thought.
All right, so we've covered a lot of positive ground here, but let's get real for a second. What could go wrong? What are the potential downsides here?
Well, one big challenge is going to be managing all that growth. You've got all these people moving in. It's going to put a strain on infrastructure, schools, hospitals, public transportation, all that.
It's like they're building the plane while they're flying it.
That's a good way to put it. And then there's the impact on the environment. More people means more buildings, more cars, more pollution.
It's a delicate balance.
It really is. They need to make sure they're building sustainably, thinking long-term.
So eco-friendly buildings, renewable energy, all that good stuff.
Exactly. It's not just a trend anymore. It's a necessity.
It's about making sure this growth benefits everyone, not just the people who move in tomorrow. So to recap for our listener, we've gone deep on the Dwarka Expressway, from the shiny new buildings to the potential pitfalls.
We've thrown a lot of information at them. It can be overwhelming.
Which is why we always say, do your research.
Knowledge is power, my friend. Never forget that.
But before we wrap up, there's one more thing I want to touch on. It's something that often gets lost in the shuffle, but it's crucial.
What's that?
The human side of all this. It's easy to get caught up in the square footage, the price per square foot, the potential profits. But at the end of the day, we're talking about people's lives here.
Building communities, not just concrete jungle.
Exactly. And that's not something you can just throw money at. It takes a conscious effort to create places where people feel connected, where they feel like they belong.
And that responsibility falls on everyone, not just the developers.
It's about asking ourselves, what kind of place do we want to live in? What kind of legacy do we want to leave behind?
Because ultimately, that's what really matters.
Couldn't agree more. So, as the Dwarka Expressway ushers in a new era for Gurgaon, the question is, are you ready to be a part of it? You know, it's funny how this all started with a road.
And now we're talking about building a whole new way of life.
That's the thing about these deep dives. You start with something concrete, like the Dwarka Expressway, and then you realize it's connected to, like, everything.
It's all connected, right? The roads we build, the buildings we put up, it's not just about bricks and mortar. It's about how we want to live, how we want to connect with each other.
And with the Dwarka Expressway, it feels like we've got this blank slate, a chance to get things right.
Yeah, a clean slate, but also a huge responsibility.
Yeah.
We can't just repeat the same mistakes, build the same old concrete jungles.
We need to be smarter this time, more sustainable, more inclusive. We have to ask ourselves, what kind of legacy are we building?
Exactly. Because at the end of the day, it's not about how much money you made, it's about the world you leave behind.
Couldn't agree more. So, to our listener out there, we've given you a lot to think about. The Dwarka Expressway is just the beginning. Now it's your turn to decide, what role do you want to play in shaping Gurgaon's future? This is The Deep Dive, signing off for now. Thanks for exploring with us.